God, I feel
I am cold. I've got my wrap around me. I'm freezing cold. I got a fire in the wood stove.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It's really nice, actually.
Oh, that sounds really. Oh, I gotta. Do you want me to move my camera this way? Does it work? Oh, that's upside down. Oh, no, that doesn't work. Does that work? Hey, okay, that's much.
Hey, now we're even. QueenB, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing? It's been a while. How you doing? How you doing?
I can't believe it's a new year already.
It is such a new year, eh? A new day, a new dawn. And we're moving on. You know what I mean? I'm QueenB Divine, and this is Henry. Run my Henry C. How you doing? And this is our first New Year conversation podcast. Classic screenshots. And boy, we have a doozy for you.
We are all singing the song of the dawn. It's a new dawn. It's a new day.
It's a new dawn. So let's start with, the most important. How is your day today? How are you doing?
I'm tired.
I feel you, brother. Oh my God, I feel you.
I am cold. I've got my wrap around me. I'm freezing cold. I got a fire in the wood stove.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It's really nice, actually.
Oh, that sounds really. Oh, I gotta. Do you want me to move my camera this way? Does it work? Oh, that's upside down. Oh, no, that doesn't work. Does that work? Hey, okay, that's much.
Hey, now we're even.
Now we're even. You can see me better too.
I didn't even shave today. Look at me. I am a mess. I am a hot mess.
Well, I was running on laundry. I barely put my little thing on. I've got my sweatshirt on. I don't even got a bra, and my tits are just hanging low. Lord Jesus.
Woo! Kim swinging back and fro.
This way. Let me just plug this baby in, and let me, it's a nice day out here. I feel your tiredness. I'm going to grab some water while I'm out here.
Oh, good. Well, it's that time of year where one wants to hibernate and just sort of curl up with your dog and a nice hot cup of something and light a fire and just sort of, fall asleep and take some time to be in other dimensions.
Yes, be in other dimensions. Speaking about dimensions, the king.
Speaking about other dimensions.
This is going to be a good conversation, let me tell you.
Oh, it's not the queen of jazz. It's is
the king of jazz. And the king of jazz got some ideas.
But is it? But is it?
Well, okay, but is it?
You seem to think so.
It really, a reason why I loved the movie King of Jazz, I wasn't expecting this. I had no idea what I was going to expect. I was expecting a backdrop of a story, and then perhaps this gentleman, whoever this person was, would rise to the top of the musical. And when I started watching this, I was like, what's happening right now? And I'm going to
Where's the king of jazz?
Where's the king of jazz? Now, before we get in, I tell you, there are little details about this thing that you can pick out. So I say, you need to be watching this movie, because we're not here to tell you your movie, because there are parts that you could be sitting quite nicely and comfortably and then suddenly go, what the fuck just happened?
It is a what the fuck kind of movie.
Yeah, this is welcome to the classic screenshots where we're watching what the fuck movie.
This is our what the fuck segment. Listen, What I always recommend to people, and I even recommended to you, that if you do any mind-altering substances, like, you know, that of the cannabis persuasion, or even have a glass of wine or two before you watch it, drop some acid, do some LSD, because this movie will fuck you up. It will take you on a journey. And especially if you are Black. And I can't say as a, I mean, I don't identify as a white man, even though my skin.
He tells me that all the time. He's not.
I know I'm not. I'm really not. I don't feel that way. But I imagine, and of course, you know, as a human being,
right,
there's that universality to us that can allow us to empathize on whatever level we can. And I can imagine a Black man or woman sitting in the movie theater in 1930, going to see their people represented as the kings of jazz. Oh, is this a biopic about Louis Armstrong?
Thank you very much.
Right? I mean, what is this movie about? And there is, and I'm honest about this, there is only one Black actor in the entire
I think you're stretching that.
Movie.
It was a placement. It's a placement.
It's a token. Yes, I mean, it was a token placement. But she did so in that little moment. She acted. She was acting. I know. Okay, you got to tell our buffs what the fuck you're talking about, because
okay, so
I mean, we got to open with it. We got to open. It defines the movie for me.
Yeah,
and
so let's open the movie first, Henry C. We open the movie with a beautiful display of, I believe it's Technicolor. Yeah, Technicolor, yeah?
Yes, 2-strip Technicolor. So this is before they had 3-strip color. So they could only highlight 2 colors, kind of pink and green.
Right. And it is, even though you're just working with these 2 tones, it still conveys that luxurious, oh my God, over the top.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of going through my grandmother's old photo albums, and the color photos, the earliest color photos that she had in that album that were kind of faded over time, and they had that kind of faded sort of pinky blue hue to them. That's what it reminded me of. So it automatically feels nostalgic. And the link down in the undercarriage to the film, buffs, is a restored, beautifully restored version that came out just, I mean, I think, I can't remember what year. I'll put it across the screen. But this restoration is luscious. It's really takes you back to a time. It's like a time machine in the best way and the worst way.
In the best way and the worst way. And I know, as we were watching, because we watched the movies together, you know, we try our best. I think we've only done one movie where we didn't watch it together, but we usually watch it together because it's just, it's nice. And you do get a nice, more voluptuous experience when you're watching a movie with someone. You're like, okay, what are you thinking? Or even just
talk about it in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, when I looked at it and we were looking at the Technicolor, the 2 tones, I was like, you know, I said, man, that looks kind of like the hospital room or your grandma's mints. Do you remember that?
Grandma's bathroom blue.
Grandma's bathroom.
Green.
That's the one thing that as soon as you open to the screen and you press your play, you're going to see this, right? Now, when Henry C. said he was expecting Louis Armstrong, I was hoping to see a little Nat King Cole. Just a little.
Well, this was way before Nat King Cole's time.
I'm being straight with you. I'm being very straight with you. Anybody who's watching this will know. It opened up with a lot of white people, and I wasn't thrown off. I was like, all righty. Let's let it play. Right? Because as a Black woman coming from growing up with just Black people,
and buckwheat. Oh, we're going to talk about
I
buckwheat.
understand jazz to what was playing in the movie as that to be jazz.
It's
but
jazz, exactly. It was more big band kind of show tune kind of thing. Yeah.
Like we were saying in the movie, like, because we were bouncing off ideas after this, and I did record it, so it'd be interesting just to put that little tips to it, is that we saw jazz as kids, and what our parents kind of led us to believe was there was so much chaos on the outside of the world that jazz became its own little thing, because jazz for me was the spoons, was the washboards, was the plunger at the end of just the rawness of putting everything into some sort of normality, so you can, it's like taking chaos and making it danceable and then going jazz. Right. So I was expecting a little bit of this. So we have a lot of dancers. First of all, we have these gorgeous leggy white women dancers. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's what I see.
You know what I found out about them? The Russell Markert girls is how they're billed. Those were actually the Rockettes of their time.
I thought so.
They were the Rockettes. They were billed as the Russell Markert girls. I don't know why.
I thought so.
Maybe it was a copyright thing or rights. I have no idea, but I just read that.
I thought so, because I'm thinking why did the Rockettes were
very Rockettes.
I never spoke it, but I remember thinking Rockettes. But hey, point being, so you see all these beautiful colors, and there's one scene. This is before this. Here comes the scene. So prior, we were talking about how we believe, because I was having a battle within, because I'm like, this is not the jazz I know. This seems diluted in one direction. It's nothing that I even grew up with. So I was like, okay, great. So there's a scene that comes out, and the women are wearing these pink, light pink, orange kind of dresses that look like female vaginas. Now, my vagina has a little brown in it, but from the inside, it's all pink. We get it. It looks.
Do not want to hear about your vagina, QueenB. Anyways, yes, these costumes. This big production number, a bench in the park, where all the
these dresses literally look like female genitalia. It just that's exactly what you'll see it, watch it. So I'm watching it going, okay. And then it hit me, brothers and sisters, all of y'all. The stage turns, and you see fully turns. It's very, very, it's amazing, an amazing put together show in that sense. It turns, the stage turns, and then you see these people playing instruments, and then you see a very big white man. You see his back towards you.
His name is Whiteman.
Oh, Whiteman. His name is Whiteman. Yeah. Hey, I'm not joking. Yeah. We see, is it Paul Whiteman?
Paul Whiteman, band leader.
We saw Paul Whiteman, and his back is towards us, and then he turns around, and to my surprise, there is this buckwheat child sitting on his lap. The only black child, the only black thing in the whole thing. And you're like, and you're going, oh my God, why? And he pinches his cheeks.
He's dressed like a fat sailor. Yes. And she's got her hair in braids and little bows.
Right. Like buckwheat, if you know who buckwheat is.
And she's like flirting with him and pinching his cheek, and he's like all coy and everything. And it's just like, what are we looking at? What are we watching? What is this? I had to
stop for a minute and go, what's happening? But for all intents and purposes, the date of the movie, it didn't surprise me, because I'm not judging, saying it was wrong or right, but for the time, that's what it was, right?
Right and wrong. I mean, I think it was so wrong then, and it's so wrong now. You'd never see it now.
Well, let's play it out. Okay, I know too much wrong and right, but if you're only given certain knowledge for a certain group of people, and you are limited to the experience, and this is what you pull out, is it wrong? You're just pulling from your experience, right?
I mean, or no? I mean, we've talked about a lot just between us. We've talked about blackface, and we've talked about black actors in blackface. Right. We've talked about white actors in blackface. I showed you a clip of Judy Garland in blackface with those same
Yeah,
What
that was mind blowing.
they
That was
called
like,
time,
what?
right?
Right.
And singing, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And I understand that. I know. It was like the black anthem of the early 1900s. But it was the fact that minstrel, the art of minstrel performing was so prevalent at the time, right? That I could understand including it at that time as a truly American art form that it was. That people of all shades were charcoaling their faces and making big white lips and had what they called them the pickaninny hair. I can understand that at the time. It wasn't right, though. It wasn't right then.
It wasn't right. Fair enough.
Now, but I think it's really important to go back and look at it courageously and talk about it and say, how does that, what they were doing then, inform our attitudes still today about people who have original art forms that are unique to them and wanting a piece of that, wanting to be part of that? I think that's an important part of the conversation, how Black art has influenced culture globally.
Well, yes, I think there's a lack of representation and voices when it comes. There's many Black artists. I mean, there's, if you just look that up, you will find many artists, canvases, pictures. There's tons of them, but they lack the stream to be noticed. And it's beautiful art. So I think when I looked at that situation, that part of the movie, and went, and go, I just came to a point saying, wow, we've come far.
Yeah. It's a great point. I think it's important to look at that. And for all of us, no matter what our cultural, ethnic, skin color background is, to look at that together and say, look how far we've come. We have a long way to go. But look how
far we've come. We do have a long way to go.
I have to tell you, QueenB, I did some homework. I did some sleepless night homework looking for this child. What else was she in? Was she in anything else? What was the story about where she came from? Why they cast her? Did she play with the white kids on the set? Because there were some other children in the movie, right? Was she paid at all? Was she paid anything? We don't know. She could have been given a cup of coffee and a donut. I mean, she was what? Probably 3 or 4.
Yes, a coffee and a donut.
All I could find, QueenB, the only information I could find was the name that they gave her, because she was not born with the name Snowdrop.
What?
Yes.
Joking.
Snowdrop.
No, joking. I don't know. Pineapples.
I swear, go look it up. Snowdrop, King of Jazz. I've looked high, I have looked low. There are little, how back in the day they used to have little trading cards and cigarette packets? There is a cigarette packet trading card of that moment. I'm going to post it right now so you all can see, of Paul Whiteman in his fat sailor suit with Snowdrop on his lap.
Wow, isn't that the white man with a black snowdrop? God bless this world.
I mean, you got to give props to the sense of humor and the irony of it. I mean, look, they gave Buckwheat Buckwheat's name, right? But no child was ever named Buckwheat by their parents. I don't care what color you are. But the fact that they called her Snowdrop, and there's no literature on her. There's no story of who
Snowdrop, wherever you are, baby.
We love you, Snowdrop. If you're still alive, please.
And there is, as before we move on to the rest of it, I know
the whole thing is about Snowdrop is the king of jazz. I've decided.
Snowdrop is the king of jazz. Is that it could also be looked at, and I might be giving them way too much credit. It could also be that the Snowdrop, the child, represented the beginnings of jazz, this is where it came from.
They tried to do that, didn't they? I mean,
They
from the beginning, there's an announcer, and there's this giant book about that's supposedly the life story of Paul Whiteman, who I think coined his own title, The King of Jazz.
Right.
And the book opens, and the first thing you see in the movie is an animated short feature. In darkest Africa, and there's a cartoon depiction of Paul Whiteman as the great white hunter in Africa, and he's trying to, you know, escape from this lion who takes out his teeth. I mean, really get stoned out of your mind.
You have to, really, you do.
It has the distinction of being the first Technicolor cartoon ever in history. So in that sense, historically, it's an important film. It's got a number of firsts, that being one of them. You've heard of Woody Woodpecker. It's the same artist who drew Woody Woodpecker, did this animation, Lantz. And you know, it's definitely a racist depiction of Africa. You know, there are coal black Africans with a bone in their hair and, you know, like cannibals or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. And then later on, as they are introducing the famous Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue, they open that number with a white dancer painted completely in tar black, wearing little short shorts, and I swear it's a potted plant on the top of his head with 2 coffee cans on his ears, in silhouette, on a giant drum, dancing, and that's the only place where they even allude that in the cartoon, that the origins of jazz were in African peoples, in African rhythms and African
you know, and we even went to there because when I was growing up, the birthplace for jazz was deep south, to the people who were poor or poorer, seemed poorer, and because of their lack of, you know, they can't go buy a guitar like everybody else. Not saying they didn't eventually, but prior to getting that you know, that capability, jazz was just pulled from just stuff, just anything that they could touch.
Percussion.
Yeah, just
it was a lot of percussion. Yeah.
And if we're talking about the percussion aspect or the beating of the drum, sure, we can date back to Africa. But what they depicted in that movie, and you know, the only thing I respect about that image was they didn't get too close. They tried to do it creatively. They had the shadow in the back, and then they had this person drenched in black tar. I have no idea what it was.
They could not have found a black dancer. I'm sorry.
No, exactly.
I'm sorry. Even if you're going to pretend that jazz came directly from Africa and plugged into American culture, which is essentially what they were trying to say. Although, you know, with that cartoon, you know, a monkey throws a coconut at Paul Whiteman's cartoon character, and he gets a big lump on his head that turns into a crown, and they say that's how Paul Whiteman became the king of jazz. I mean, it's stupid. It's stupid, very stupid humor, right? Yeah. But the whole thing is stupid humor. It's from vaudeville. It's from that tradition of silly, you know, elbow in the ribs kind of humor.
You know, and it's almost like when it was stupid, and you can see in the sense of like, you're like, come on, really. But what I thought was interesting is that Paul Whiteman took hits for himself because of his weight, and you're like, oh, that's just so sad. You know, like
in almost every scene, every scene he's in,
his weight.
They're digging at him with fat jokes, and he takes it on the chin. But then he gets his comeuppance, because he talks about, you know, well, I could dance, right? And then and then he starts dancing like nobody's business. And here's this big guy, represent the big guys, and he's dancing up a storm. And the narrator
I even got carried away.
I never knew you could dance like that. And it turns out it was a different guy.
Yeah, because I was right there. I was like, oh my God, brother, you do it. I mean, the gentleman who was playing the double literally looked like him, like weight wise,
like,
everything. So it wasn't that, you know, yes, Paul Whiteman probably didn't do it, but he was saying, yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter, you're big, or I could still dance, you know, anybody. And he was saying it was for anybody.
What does that say about mental health when people point a finger at you and call you the N-word, or they call you you know, a fat joke at your expense, or anybody who is attacked for a superficiality that dehumanizes them, right? Which any person of color has dealt with their entire lives, even to this day, when people are just looking at the superficial. Or somebody like me, I'm still a big guy, but I used to be morbidly obese. And I auditioned for a show when I was an actor, and the director was looking through my file and everything, and he said, what role are you auditioning for? And I told him which role, and he said, well, you can't play that, look at you.
You know, you see, and the industry is like that, because I remember in my auditioning days going out for a character, and one of the directors looked at me and going, you know what, you're just too ethnic for the part. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
What does that mean? It's crazy. Now, the other thing we have to say is that the whole premise at the end of the movie, they talk about how jazz is a melting pot of all cultures. They have this giant pot, and then they have the Irish come out, and then the Scottish and the Brits and the Italians and French, but no people of color whatsoever, no African people, no American dark-skinned people.
Not even Snowdrop came out to say anything.
She didn't even come and have and she didn't get any credit, by the way. I'm really glad that the only way we know her name is because on the bottom of that trading card, that cigarette trading card, it says her name, Snowdrop, and Paul Whiteman.
Wow. Snowdrop. So Snowdrop, wow, cool. You are the queen of jazz. I don't even know, not to be disrespectful. I'm not sure if it was a boy or a girl. That it was, I don't know.
It was, well, you never know. You never know. I do believe she was a girl.
Okay. Well, out there, Snowdrop, thank you for contributing, because even when we look past all of that superficiality of that movie and the audacity of Paul Whiteman thinking he's king of jazz, but I get it. That's okay.
Well, and the funders, the producers, and you know, the producers and the directors and the money people.
It is what it is. It was a magical journey.
Non-stop.
And there were parts where Henry C. and I would go, and they were like, that one part that you said, they were throwing the woman up, and we're like, why?
Like, you know, they dropped her at some point. You know, she got a king of jazz crown on her head too.
Okay, so when we were looking at like, so they have all the melting pot of people in there, you know, everybody, and you don't see any people of color in there. And
no, I mean there is one musical number that depicts Mexican people, but they were white people playing Mexican people. And then there were no Mexicans in the there was a Spanish, like, I think it was a Mexican.
Yes.
But they were all white.
Yeah, they were all white. And you know, it at the time, when I looked at it, looking at the movie, I wasn't offended. I felt a little sorry, because it just showed the fear. For me, it showed the fear of inclusion, because perhaps, and I'm not going to I can't pretend to know what Paul Whiteman was thinking, or anybody at the time was thinking, but it almost showed that if we included everybody, we may not get any props as, you know, white people. You know, that's why I say we've come far, because there are a lot of, you can talk to anybody who loves jazz, the genre of jazz, and they will go exactly to, this is where it came from. The bottoms of not Africa, but of United States, the ghettos of those people who just wanted to be a part of something, so they created their own. So, you know, we've come far, and perhaps, like you said, in the time, what was it? The war was going on. Am I correct? Is that what what was it?
This was 1930. Yeah. So it was just the beginnings of World War II. Yeah.
Right. And like we said, that it was almost like a seed to say, we are rebooting the system. The Great Depression is gone. I mean, we're either in it or coming out of it.
We were in the midst of the Great Depression.
Yeah, we're in the midst of it. And so perhaps this movie was part of the propaganda in rebooting society to the norms of, this is what jazz is. and you know, we know better now that jazz can take there's a whole bunch of genres of jazz. There's acid jazz, there's country jazz, there's a whole bunch of jazz, but it came
Fusion
from
jazz,
fusion
instrumental jazz,
jazz,
vocal
all kinds
jazz.
of
I
stuff.
mean, there's so many kinds of jazz now, but
Right.
you know,
But we know the
I
crust.
think you're absolutely right.
Right.
One thing I want to touch on that you said that I really want to validate is that there's plenty in this movie, The King of Jazz, that could be offensive to a lot of people. But I think that I mean, even to me, there were Jewish, you know, little subtle Jewish jokes, you know, digs there too. Jews were not represented in this film either, which I think was really interesting.
It was just white people, straight up white people. End of story.
And I think that as a rule of thumb, buffs generally, when you're watching old films, when you're watching movies that are not current, that are classics,
right,
you can choose to go in to the experience expecting to be offended,
right,
and have your guard up and expecting to walk away offended. And you could also, the other option is to go into it, as QueenB was just saying, I'm not going to be offended by this. I know that it was of its time. I know that it was wrong then, it's wrong now, but it's a really interesting exploration, like a time machine into a time where we now have the ability to pick up on some of those subtle things, the fear around Blackness, the fear around the power of Blackness and the beauty of Blackness in culture, and how it defined American culture.
Yes,
you know, this is the heart. I really feel that, and so I think that depending on how you go into an experience in classic film, that will define your attitude about it. And if
you know, I want to throw something.
Be critical. Absolutely, we should be critical, but also look through it. Look through it.
You know, that's exactly it. You got to take these things for what they are, a learning experience, and you know, just looking at it and look beyond that, and that's how you create your wisdom and see the difference. You know, but when we look at it, and this is just, I'm not getting into anything about white supremacy or anything, but when we say Black power, we automatically think the encouragement of Black people. But when we hear white power, we get a little scared. I don't know why.
Right.
But
right.
As a culture of people, you should never feel guilty for being who you are.
No.
White, Black, or empower yourself to empower others, right?
No matter where your people came from.
No matter where you're from. And you're going to hear, I've heard the term white guilt. Hell, you know, yeah, I get it. Blah, blah,
white
blah,
fragility.
Blah, blah. Yeah. But we must have the conversation. And if we didn't create movies, or Paul Whiteman didn't create this type of movie, and others didn't create other types of movies, we would never know that there was an underlying fear, or that information need to be corrected. And this is why I think we have the conversation. We have this YouTube channel, Classic Screen Stars, so we could talk about this stuff and go, take away your trying to get offended by any of these things. Blackface.
Expecting to be offended.
Yeah, like don't take all and just go into it with the beauty of creation and the artistry of like, even you know what we said, we were talking about it, the amount of seamstress that it took to create this was
the sets upon sets, operatic in scale, and the special effects in this movie that were very novel and amazing for their time.
Yeah,
right? We have the other thing that I think I appreciate, the quality of the music for being big band music of the 1920s was exceptional. It was really good. There were amazing musicians involved. Bing Crosby.
My gosh, yes, Bing Crosby.
This was his first movie. He was not listed as a solo artist. He was part of a group, a trio called the Rhythm Boys. And I've got a little juicy tidbit about Miss Crosby.
Yeah, do tell.
During the filming of The King of Jazz, Crosby was imprisoned for drunk driving.
What did he do?
He was drunk driving. he hit somebody, they were injured, and because it was during a time in America of temperance, meaning it was illegal, alcohol was illegal, he was thrown in jail for, I think it was supposed to be a couple months.
Right.
And because he was being featured in this film with his trio, they escorted him from the jail to the set to do his bit and then took him back to jail. And he was in jail for about 40 days.
Well, you know, I'm going to say a little white privilege there, just a little, because
they would not have done that for Snowdrop. I'm telling you, they would not have escorted Snowdrop to the set.
Even to today, I'm sure they're not pulling out Black people or people of color to go, hey, how about you finish your job and then come back? That's and you know, and that's another thing, because Bing Crosby ends up, you know, being an iconic name in the industry.
Wasn't that he was an unknown practically, and this was his first film ever.
We know White Christmas. You know, I've even seen him, just a little shout out to Carol Burnett. Like, if you watch her reruns, you will see him on there, and he's a big deal. You see him a little aged, which is interesting because the first time we hear him, I think we hear him in the opening credits.
Yeah, you do.
We automatically, if you know who Bing Crosby is, you automatically know that's his voice, because you could hear that boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Boom. And I grew up, even, you know, Black community, Bing Crosby was the go-to song. Yes, we had other things like Bob Marley in there and Peter Tosh and singing Christmas, Rita Marley singing her Christmas. But when as a kid, you know, I was very blessed to go to theater school. Three theater schools. I give them a shout out: Wexford School of the Arts, woo woo, Stanford School of the Arts in Niagara Falls, and Etobicoke School of the Arts in Etobicoke. And all of these schools really, you know, brought out certain, mostly white, you know, Bing Crosby, Gershwin. We did a lot of, one of my favorite musicals is Hello, Dolly. Well, hello, Dolly.
Jerry Herman.
So nice to have you back where you. So, you know, like I said before, it's very advantageous to watch these movies, despite what we think, you know, religiously, blase, because if you go past that wall and you break it down, there is a wealth of stuff to learn. There's so much to take in, because they still, even though Paul Whiteman, however he is now, he set the stage, because you're like, wow, this is a big, you know, if he came to me and said, I need you to be a part of this, and you're going to be a seamstress, or you're going to be a lighting director, or you're going to be a cameraman, I'd be like, holy shit. It was a big overhaul of just, it was so much.
He was a big deal. He was a big deal. Yeah.
It was so much. And I applaud him, because he did give me an entertaining journey through his scrapbook. And in the movie, you'll understand, if you watch it, you'll understand what I mean. His scrapbook of what he believed jazz was, or what he was told to play as jazz. It was entertaining. It would definitely, you know, have a spliff though, be warning, like smokes.
Well, and you know, in this industry, there are money people, there are producers who call the shots, and they wanted to build a vehicle around Paul Whiteman because he was such a big name in music and popular music of that time.
Did he do anything else? Like, I've never.
Well, he did in concerts and on stage, on the Broadway stage, you know, and the style of this is akin to what the Ziegfeld Follies would have been. And you know, the narrator comes out in front of a beautiful curtain. So it was meant to be like a theatrical experience. It was meant to celebrate performing arts. Dance. Some of the dances were amazing.
And that's why the one thing that I think he did, I mean, if there's right or wrong in this, but I honored and I thought was gorgeous, is that the women weren't twiggy, which is, you know, thin. They were voluptuous. They were thick women, and they looked good. You know what I'm saying? So he really had a certain type of woman or shape size that he liked because he kept it consistent through the whole thing.
Well, and that was, again, this was 1930. This was coming out of the jazz era, the jazz age,
right.
The 1920s, flappers and
I was
all
just
that.
going to say flappers.
Yes, and there are still the vested. This is right on the cusp of coming out of the jazz age, and so the boyish figure was very, very popular at the time, and thicker women were considered more beautiful, even up to, look at Marilyn Monroe. She was pretty thick.
She was.
Right? I mean, you know, and you look at this time and the way that, you know, Josephine Baker,
she was dynamic.
You know, we're going to watch one of her movies.
We've got to. She was her biography. Her biography is amazing.
Yeah, and outside of the mammy characters, which were pretty much sexless, they didn't really, they weren't presented with any kind of sexuality, and that was on purpose.
Right.
It was one until Dorothy Dandridge showed up on the scene.
She's a hottie.
And she had curves, and Pearl Bailey, who also had curves.
Right.
You know, and of course Lena Horne, who was very curvy. We didn't see a lot of glamorous, alluring, beautiful Black women on the screen. The best we could get in 1930 was Snowdrop.
Oh, Snowdrop.
Oh, we love our Snowdrop. We love her. Whatever your real name is, we honor your real name, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We keep coming back to Snowdrop, but I you know, I think that here there were many opportunities to present the real kings of jazz and queens of jazz, and it was an opportunity missed. That said, the film did boast its firsts. It was an Academy Award winner for, I can't remember what category, but it was an achievement in film, and that's why I think it's an important film. We can be very critical, you know, about all the little nitpicky stuff, you know, and stacked up against other films that really were worse. This was only second Technicolor big musical review film in history. This was the second one ever made, and that counts for something.
I think so, most definitely. I think it definitely counts for something. You know, I think we mentioned, you know, I think you going back a little, you know, in the time that we were in, like you said, it was a beautiful art of distraction, and there was a lot of things going on in that time. And to go to the movie theater, for whatever, you know, I think it did its job. It distracted you from whatever was going on, the wars, the Great Depression, the inflation, the type of food, the lack of this, whatever. And look at it, it's still happening today. We use movies to distract us from what is happening outside. Yeah, and an escape. And is it working? Well, you know, we know what's happening in the world. We're waking up, whatever. I don't know what people are saying these days, but we are seeing the truth, and we're seeing behind the lenses. We're seeing that the actors now, who play such movies that are meant to help us escape, need an escape themselves. So we're seeing a lot of realness. You know what I mean? So that, I think, for the movie. Say again?
Humor. We still need to escape. We still
do.
Well,
yeah, it's just, that's what it is. Life is really about for me, just enjoying life, eating your food, being with the ones you love. And anything more than that, it can get a little confusing to me. So, you know, the distraction, I don't really need a distraction from my life because I'm loving it. I love living and stepping through it. But there are a lot of people who need the distraction. I think that movie delivers 100% when it comes to, let's take you out of this world that's right now just kind of a little difficult. Pay your nickel back in the day, sit in the theater, and just enjoy, and just look at the color, look at the women. And I'm sure anybody who was watching it might not have seen it as this race thing, like, oh, there's a little Snowdrop. Who's that? They just saw it as, hey, it's entertainment.
Snowdrop.
Oh, snowdrop. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, my faux pas. But it's exactly what we need, right? And let's make a segue. What cup are you drinking? What are you drinking today?
Random segue.
Yeah, what's in your random segue cup, baby? What's in there?
Cup of the week. I actually decided to have some wine instead of
Good for
tea
you.
tonight.
Oh man,
No, because I'm so cold. I needed to warm from the inside, so I
I
made
feel you,
myself
brother.
a little.
Trust me. If I had a little wine prior to this, a little drinky drink.
Nice.
So this is my my water, so I can hydrate in the middle of the day. I'm taking a shot of rum. What's wrong with me?
I gotta find a snowdrop cup because
You know what?
Snowdrop's got to be our cup of the week. Let's cheers to Snowdrop.
Snowdrop. Yeah. Oh, where's my cup? I don't even. Yes, there you go. Bing to Snowdrop. Thank you so much for being you. It is, and it is something that when you look at it, because when we were kids, because you had informed me that buckwheat didn't come out till much later, and
right.
But even though when I saw it, I compared it to to buckwheat snowdrop, because at the time when we were kids, the Little Rascals, we only remembered buckwheat, right? Because we all knew what people.
The silent Little Rascals from the 1980s.
Silent, because I remember being a kid, and because we were a little poor, my mom, people would be like, "You got buckwheat fashion," and we knew exactly what you were saying. So,
well, and buckwheat, William Thomas,
right?
I think was his name. Yeah, Billy Thomas Jr.
Okay.
Portrayed buckwheat, and for the first few years, when he was cast, and he was only like 2 or 3 years old, buckwheat was female. Buckwheat was a female character. He was portrayed as a female character, and it wasn't until later that he sort of matured into himself as a male comedic child actor. But I think it's really interesting to watch the progression of Black child actors of that time. Some of the other actors that were in our gang, Farina, who was a male character, but Farina also had those braids with the rags on them.
Right.
There was also Stymie with the little bowler hat. He had a big head, and his bowler hat was a little bit too small, so it sat up high. He was my favorite. I liked him even better than Buckwheat.
Well, you hit
what I loved about that was these kids were portrayed. They were part of the gang, no more, no less than the other kids.
Yes.
And I wish that had more impact on the adult cinema creators, because there could have been more intermixing and friends just being friends without regard to the superficial things. I mean, everybody in this movie who sang, except for that one guy, John Boles, with the deep voice, "Song of the Dawn," all the women sounded like they inhaled helium, didn't they?
I'm going to say straight up right now, I didn't like any of those female voices. Not impressed.
No, there was that one
when I think of jazz, I think of that rich, bassy, just. I think of that. I don't think of how I did way. Well, I don't think that way. And I know
how far music itself has come, and popular music. Think of Madonna, though. In the 1980s, she had kind of a Mickey Mouse voice.
Let's not
right?
think
Didn't
Madonna.
she have
Poor Madonna. Oh no, Madonna. I don't know. God bless you wherever you, Madonna.
But didn't that one actress in King of Jazz look just like Madonna?
Yeah, before she decided that she needed to change her beauty. Yes. Oh my God. Bless
her heart.
I love you for being the original.
The OG.
The original OG. I really do. End of story. But when you're talking about child actors, you look at the ones now, and I remember even now as an adult, I get really excited when I see child Black actors in real dramatic roles, opposed to drug-ridden you know, sex. I love that. And we're getting a little like, what's his name? Shoot, the movie can't come to my head. Forrest, is it four? I can't remember. He plays an intelligent black kid who befriends somebody, and he learns, he sees him. They invite him into the apartment, and he reads for them. I can't remember. Is it a chess movie? I can't remember. Anyways, it'll come to me. And he goes in there, and
now.
Yeah, he's intelligent, and because he's intelligent and because he's black, he's not given the same options. Point being, the movie, I love when we open the space to having other people of color other than white people. I love seeing that because that means people are opening up. You know, it is not unheard of to see an all white cast, but it's somehow magical when we see an all black cast. We're like, wow, because
you know, back in the 70s, they started doing that on Broadway. You mentioned Hello Dolly,
right?
There was an all-black cast version of Hello Dolly starring Pearl Bailey and Cab Calloway. Remember Cab Calloway from
No,
Stormy Weather?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Minnie the Moocher. Yeah. Right. Absolutely brilliant. There were many other traditionally all-white shows that they couldn't do the mixed like they do now. The Wiz was a little bit different because they adapted the story to make it a black story.
Right.
But the root of that, The Wizard of Oz, was there's not one word. Dorothy was a little white girl in Kansas.
Right. We've come a long way. And in a lot of my podcasts, the Cure is Conversation podcast, which can be found on Blunt Reflection. I'm revamping my website, so bear with me. But so bear with me. But that's why I encourage the conversation, and it's to talk about things and to notice these things and to keep everything without judgment. Because we and give ourselves a break as humanity. We're so hard on ourselves, like we're growing, we're getting there, we're getting closer to inclusion, and you know we are. It's just that's it. We're learning, we're doing our best, and sometimes the people in power, Lord Jesus, don't have a good example. Don't follow them. Follow your heart. And that's why I'm so glad I have this show with Henry C., who has his own podcast, the Lost Travelers Podcast.
Lost Traveler Podcast. Yes.
That's what it's all about. Because even 40 years from now, a black person and a Jewish person could be doing shit like this. We couldn't have done this a long time ago. This is, for us, is monumental. We're doing something. We found each other. And because we resonate each other. I can't say that we looked at each other and go, hey, you look like this. I need to. We just are energy.
She's my sister. She is my sister from another mister.
Yeah. My brother from another mama. And I think that is what we take from these movies that seem to shock us sometimes, with pictures of Snowdrop or you know, other
melting pot of America.
The melting pot, right? The melting pot.
But, you know, but given that, you know, there were people in that melting pot depicted at the end of King of Jazz who were from marginalized communities, the Irish, the Italian,
within themselves.
That they were. This is probably the first time those communities had been elevated because they were considered races. In and of themselves, the Italian race and the Irish race, and you know, and so it's so hard to paint with a broad brush when it comes to the human race.
Yeah, we just gotta be gentle with ourselves.
Every one of those cultures that was depicted, the Brits, no doubt they had an effect on world culture, good, bad, or otherwise. But there were some beautiful things that came out of England. There's beautiful things that came out of France. There were beautiful things that came out of Italy and Ireland and whoever else, you know, Mexico or Spain, that they put into that melting pot, you know. But what they didn't tell you was that it was the BIPOC folk that were stirring the pot.
Like we said, we're like, you know who,
in the kitchen, making something.
Who was sewing those dresses? You know, but black people sitting there sewing the shit out of those dresses.
We were building the fire under that melting pot.
But you see, and that's what life is all about, taking all of this stuff and just having a laugh about it. Because I know in myself, I'm an empowered Black woman, and no movie is going to change that. No, it's just that simple. And go, and like I said, please, when we talk about these things, we're not just talking for the good of the health. Check out the movie, see a different different perspective when it comes to us. Perhaps it'll show you that we have come a long way as a culture, as people, and not to be so hard on ourselves. Yes, there's still a lot of work to do, but we're doing it. We're doing it.
And you know, and it's never too late to add to this conversation. We have a whole section down below where you can leave a comment. If there's something in this movie that we haven't touched on, or in any of the movies that we've done, contribute to the conversation. Share with us how these films have impacted your own mental health.
Right.
Have they impacted your own mental health? If so, what parts of the movie triggered you and why? If they didn't trigger you, what parts of the movie and why? This is the kind of dialogue we want to get into with our buffs. So far, we haven't had one. What is this, episode 18? We haven't had one dialogue yet with a buff.
Right.
So this is the challenge of 2023, and Happy New Year, everybody. Happy and healthy New Year. Start engaging with us down in the undercarriage, down in the comments section. Leave us your thoughts, leave us your comments, leave us your interest in maybe some films that we should watch that maybe we haven't, that we can bring a classic film to the table and talk about, right? These aren't reaction. This isn't a reaction channel. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Although this movie will have you reacting, though.
Oh, yes. Especially if you're stoned.
Yeah, especially if you're stoned.
We are reacting to the impact on modern culture and mental health that these movies still have. So in that sense, we're a reaction channel, but we're not watching the movie right now in little clips and commenting on it all the way through the film. That's not what we are. We're a different kind of reaction channel, but we want you to react with us, and we want to build community through this in these beautiful conversations. So please make sure to go to bluntreflections.com, get into the cure of conversation with Madam QueenB Divine.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, she brought her crown. Oh, look at you. You look like Yemanja. Right? Or go to Lost Traveler podcast and learn some life skills for our time.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's all about sharing.
Experts all over the world having conversations. My podcast is about conversations. QueenB's podcast is about conversation. And this channel, Classic Screenshots, is all about the conversation between us and with you, our buffs. Be a buff.
Be a buff. And you know what? Like I said, I really do believe that like Henry just said, keep talking. Just chime in, share your thoughts. Like he said, if there's a movie that you want us to talk about, put it in the comment box. We'll be sure to look through it, do our due diligence, whatever we need to do to apply it to the show. And if you want to have your 2 cents heard, don't be afraid to reach out. And if you do reach out to any of us, you never know, you could be on the show. Maybe you have a very powerful stance, be a guest, a powerful stance on a certain movie that you think needs to be seen and heard and spoken about. We will indulge you, baby. We will.
Yeah, we're due for a guest.
That's the royal promise. That's the royal promise. That's a boop magic.
Look at you. You are equipped. You are equipped. Okay.
Anyways, I am QueenB Divine.
Subscribe, ring the bell, do all those things because it does help the algorithm. You know, that's not why we're doing it. But if your finger happens to be moving your cursor down to the subscribe and the bell and the like buttons, just mash them for us.
All right. I love it. So this was just a little bit, look back at the king of jazz, and make sure you take care of you, because you know what? Your mental health means everything. And if you want just a little boost of mental health conversation, join us and we will be here to have the conversation with you. I'm Queen B Divine.
Henry C. And classic is sexy. So
it's so sexy, baby. It's so
be above. Tell your friends about us too. Bye.
Bye.